Welcome to my channel, I'm Gary Wuryawan, and today we're going to talk about this small little lens. This is the Panasonic 14mm f2.5. Let's go! So, as some of you guys might already know, I'm a big micro four thirds shooter, and I always enjoy shooting using smaller, lighter micro four thirds lenses that give you a lot of bang for your buck. As a matter of fact, I'm really happy with my Panasonic 20mm f1.7. It's very small, it's a tiny pancake lens that's almost flush with your camera body when you attach it to a camera, and the image quality is really nice. But I want something to complement the 20mm that's a little bit wider, because 20mm is a little bit tight for my needs and I'm more of a wide angle kind of guy. I do have the pancake kit lens that comes with the Panasonic G85 that I bought a year ago, and that is the Panasonic 12 to 32mm f3.5 to f5.6. This little guy right here. I'm very happy with the performance of this lens. The focal length is really wide, and also you can zoom it in, so it's very flexible and versatile, and it's still very lightweight, and it's just a very enjoyable lens to use. However, the aperture of this lens can only go to f3.5 at 12mm, so for lower light situation and for background blur, it's not enough for me. I also have the Panasonic Leica 15mm f1.7 that's currently recording this video right now, and I'm also very happy with this lens. This was one of my most used lens so far in this year, especially for making YouTube videos, for recording talk heads like this. And the lens is small, it's very sharp, the image quality is really nice, the autofocus performance is really great. I got some really nice pictures and video taken using this lens. However, it is still a little bit too big in my opinion. I'm really picky about the size of my lens because I travel a lot and I want something that is smaller, that is lighter. And the 15mm f1.7, although it is small and light, I still want something smaller and lighter than that. Call me crazy, but I'm really obsessed with this kind of stuff. And that is where the Panasonic 14mm f2.5 enters the scene. This guy right here is smaller, it is lighter. So I found this guy used online for under US $80. So it's very cheap. It's an offer that I cannot refuse, and I bought it right away, knowing that I need the lens anyway. And I've been using it for a few weeks already. I even included this lens in a vlog that I haven't published yet. So please subscribe to my channel to see that vlog featuring the 14mm f2.5. And if you want to watch the other everyday photography vlogs, please also watch this link up above so you can see the other vlogs where I try to practice photography, not just talking about gear, but actually going out on the location, trying to shoot some stuff. But anyway, in today's video, I want to share my experience of using the Panasonic 14mm f2.5 for photography, for a little bit of recording B-rolls maybe, but I use it mainly for photography. So I want to share some sample pictures, what I thought of the image quality and the performance of this lens, and hopefully by watching this video, you'll be able to understand better about the Panasonic 14mm f2.5 and decide whether this is the correct lens for you or not. Anyway, let's start with some basic specification of this lens. So in terms of dimension, this lens is very small and it's also very lightweight. This is a pancake lens. It's almost flush to the body of the camera, as you can see on my GX85 right here. The lens is very lightweight at about 55 grams, and also it's only 2 centimeters thick when you attach it to your camera body. Again, it's almost flush with your camera body because this is a pancake lens. So far, this has been the smallest and the lightest lens that I've ever owned for my micro four thirds camera system. The focal length of this lens is 14mm, which is about 28mm in full frame terms. So it's plenty wide, and it's also the same focal length that you'll generally find on the main camera of most smartphones nowadays. 14mm is wide but not too wide, it's tight but not too tight. I'm a wide angle kind of person, so I really enjoy something that's a little bit wider like the 14mm. So it's perfect for general purpose kind of everyday photography and also for travel photography. I will talk about usage later, and I will also share some sample pictures as well. The aperture of this lens is f2.5, and that is the elephant in the room. f2.5, why not f2.0 or f1.8 or f1.7? And I think that's where the compromise is. So if you make this lens into an f2 lens, undoubtedly this lens will become larger, a little bit longer, a little bit thicker, and a little bit more expensive as well. But after using it for a few weeks, I think that f2.5 is plenty enough for me. I can still get that shallow depth of field kind of look, and I can still also have that low light performance with this lens. So not really a big deal, f2.5. I appreciate the smaller and lighter form factor of the lens. The combination of the focal length and the aperture of this lens makes the 14mm f2.5 the perfect lens for environmental portrait, especially for travel. With the f2.5 aperture, you'll be able to get that nice dreamy background blur, while the 14mm focal length will still provide enough context so that you know where the picture is taken, so that the background doesn't only turn into a mush. You still have enough context, you still know where the picture is taken, and I think that is very important, especially for portrait taken during travel. Closest focusing distance with this lens is about 18 centimeters. It's not really that impressive, it's not really a macro lens, but it is still very useful. You can still photograph flowers or other small objects that you find along the road. The filter thread of this lens is about 46mm, so you can attach ND filters, CPL filters, or other kind of filters that you need. And also this lens features autofocus. Yes, this lens has an autofocus, not just manual focus like some other cheap lenses, and I'm very grateful for that. The autofocus performance of this lens is not really mind-blowing. It's not really as fast as modern micro four thirds lenses in general, but it's not as slow as my 20mm f1.7. This guy right here, the 20mm, is really slow for a micro four thirds standard. It's still fast compared to some other APS-C or full-frame lenses, but it's a little bit slow in my opinion. Fortunately, the 14mm is not as slow, and it is still dependable and reliable in my opinion. Now comes the part of the video where I'm most excited, and this is where I'm sharing my observation of the image quality of the Panasonic 14mm f2.5. And while I'm talking about my experience regarding image quality of this lens, I will also sprinkle plenty of sample pictures so that you can see directly how the images look taken using the Panasonic 14mm f2.5. All of these images were taken raw, and I post-processed them in Lightroom as usual with my usual workflow. Anyway, let's talk about the image quality, and first thing I want to talk is sharpness. I really think that the sharpness of this lens is really good. I think for mission critical photography, you'll be able to depend on this lens. I'm very confident with the sharpness of this lens. However, there are little bits of corner softness and edge softness that you must know, and it's not really that bad. If you stop down the lens to about f4 or f5.6, those corner softness and edge softness will decrease. Contrast is also a little bit lacking with this lens. It's not as contrasty as some other lens, especially if you're comparing raw pictures. You can really tell that this images taken using the Panasonic 14mm f2.5 is a little bit flatter compared to some other lenses pictures, but it's also not difficult to mitigate using post-processing. You can just add contrast later on. I personally think with the lack of contrast of this lens, it really helps to give this lens that dreamy, filmic kind of look that I really think is really nice. It's not as sterile as modern lenses, and especially for environmental portrait, it really adds into the overall vibe of the image. So lack of contrast is not really a bad thing. I quite enjoy the kind of unique look that I got from this lens. The bokeh or background blur quality of the Panasonic 14mm lens is a little bit too busy in my opinion. You can still see a lot of textures in the bokeh, but again, it's not something that's very difficult to mitigate using post-processing. You can just use the AI selection tool in Lightroom or Photoshop and just get rid of those textures using noise reduction or sharpness decrease or some other tools available. Speaking of flare and ghosting resistance, especially when you're shooting into a bright light source like the sun, it's not really that bad with this lens, except if you are directly shooting into the sun, you will see that greenish, purplish kind of artifact, that flare. It's not really that big in the image, and if the flare appears on like empty places on the part of the image, you can just kind of clone it out easily. However, you can just adjust the angle when you're shooting into a bright sunlight to avoid flare completely. So in conclusion, I'm very happy with both the performance and the image quality of the Panasonic Lumix 14mm f2.5. Considering the price and the size of the image, when I'm looking at the pictures taken using this lens, I was blown away and I had a lot of fun using this lens for taking pictures and a little bit of video as well. So I will definitely take this lens for a near future trip, and I'm confident that this lens will be able to perform during that trip and produce some great images that will be very memorable for me. And that wraps up today's video. So that is all for today's video. I hope that this review of the Panasonic 14mm f2.5 is useful and informative for you, and hopefully you'll be able to learn more about this lens from my video. So please comment down below, what is your favorite prime lens regardless of the camera format? And if you have any question about today's video, please comment down below as well and I will try to answer them. Also, don't forget to support my channel by liking this video, sharing this video, subscribing to my channel down below, and if you want to support my channel even further, please consider using the affiliate links in the description below and using the super thanks button. Thank you and see you on the next video. Goodbye.